Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy!
That's me, Tiberius!
Today, we're going to talk about some very awesome stuff. We have a shooter video game, a book which is a continuation of the series about a boy that does not want to go to magic school, and we have a totally awesome guest. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Ollie Phipps! Ollie is a Florida state licensed private investigator.
Well, thanks very much for having me on the show, Tiberius.
No problem. Today we're going to start off with the video game of the week, and this is going to be a shootout.
And now it's time for the video game of the week.
Today's video game is Bad Business. So this game is on the Roblox platform. It was made by Bad Business. Because it's on Roblox, you are able to play it on PC, Mac, Xbox, and even your cell phone. And it is free.
Free?
Well, you start the game and you are in a lobby and press the deploy button. So what you do is whatever map you are on, you just move around with your gun in hand and take out other people on the opposing team. When you die, you also see that there are other loadouts. You can click the loadout that you want to go and back out on the autofield. Well, you can get XP for defeating players as well. Also, you can get other people's guns after you defeat them. There are different types of guns. There are snipers, shotguns, pistols, and other guns. My favorite guns are the AK-47, UMP-45, and the Deverock, which is a sniper. And you can get different types of guns, and there are medieval guns, weapons as well. What I don't like about this game is that it's kind of like a copy of Phantom Forces, another shooting game that's really, really fun in my opinion. But I did enjoy getting my dad to play, because he had a lot of fun. And it did make me feel happy because I was having fun playing with my friends in the game and make my dad go crazy when I get him. He's normally the sniper and shoots people across the map. I seem to be the only one that can find what bush he's hiding in. Well, I give Bad Business 10 out of 10 stars because it was so much fun to play and compete with my friends. I like it because you get to use different guns and you get better ones from EXP and credits.
Sounds like some of the games my son likes to play.
Over 40 years, Playhouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties. Contact Playhouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at playhousecfl.org.
And now it's time for the book of the week, Magisterium, the Bronze Key. This book is written by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. Let me do the back of the book. In fact, Ollie, would you like to do the honors?
Oh, I'd be honored. Thanks. Students at the Magisterium are supposed to be safe. Under the watchful eye of the Magi's, they are taught to use magic to bring order to a chaotic world. But now, the chaos is fighting back.
Well, that's pretty cool back. And this is an AR book and it's worth 10 points. Wow, it's a lot of points. It's rated for 5th grade and 2nd month. This is a great series about the good and bad of magic. So if you remember, Cole and his friends are in a magic school. They are getting a reward to fighting and defeating the enemy of death. But this was great, except it was a lie. Cole was still possessed by the enemy of death the entire time. During the celebration, one of the students, Jennifer, died. It was magic and she was found in water. Then, the assistant Master Rufus, the one who's teaching Cole, caused lots of problems and even tried to remove the ability for Aaron to use magic, or chaos magic. All of the friends seem to be in a battle for their lives, and then, well, I really don't want to ruin it for you, because I really think that you should go read the book yourself.
Sounds good to me.
Well, I give the Magisterium the Bronze Key 10 out of 10 stars because I really like the battles and how they use magic for good. But I really did not like some of the stuff that happened in the end. And now it's time for our interview of an interesting person. Today's guest is going to be so much fun. Today we have the one, the only, the amazing Ollie Phipps. Ollie's a Florida State licensed private investigator.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Tiberius.
No problem. So first off, how are you enjoying being on the show?
Oh, well, I've had a lot of fun and learned something already.
Nice. So you're a private investigator. Can you explain to my listeners exactly what that means?
What that typically means is that we have resources to be able to find out information that people need for various scenarios, and we just help provide that information, and in exchange, of course, for a fee.
What's the fee?
The fee differs. Sometimes it's a flat rate for a particular, like a background check or something like that. But if field work is involved, like surveillance or interviews, they might pay on an hourly basis. Just depends.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Well, I mean, what's the name of your company?
It's called A Very Private Eye, or AVPE for short.
So how'd you get interested in this business?
That's a great question. I started out in the Air Force as an investigator, and pretty much haven't changed since. That was about 40 years ago.
Wow. Well, what are the types of things that you investigate?
It could be domestic matters, family matters like child well-being or, God forbid, infidelity. It can be commercial disputes, arguments over business issues. And it also can involve liability matters. Somebody gets injured or somebody loses money for some reason. Those kinds of things we can investigate.
Okay. So how is investigation different from just searching for stuff on Google?
That's another great question. The public can obviously do a lot of stuff on their own, and we actually like it when they have done some internet searching already, because that gives us a jumping off point for when we start our investigation. There are some resources that we have. You mentioned already that we are state licensed, so that kind of gives us the ability to access information that the public cannot. I could run your tag, for instance, or I could find out your dad's social security number, for instance. But all of this obviously has to be within the confines of a legitimate investigation.
Yes.
You don't just do that for fun.
Right. Yeah. So is it kind of like on TV, like with the background music?
Yeah, the only background music you'll hear is probably when I'm sitting at my computer and playing some songs like you might hear on 102 Jams. But we certainly don't wrap it up within an hour. Typically, a case might take days is pretty much a minimum. Yeah. But more often it's weeks or sometimes even months, depending on how complicated it is.
Okay. Well, how do you plan out how to investigate a project?
Well, we hear out the client because, every case is different. You hear that in a lot of industries. But truly with us, we listen to the client, we find out what information do they have, what information do they need, and that's exactly when we make the plan. Because like I said before, sometimes just a background check might be sufficient for them. Sure. But in other cases, it might involve intense field work where you're tracking down people, you're interviewing people, you're surveilling people. So you just never know. But certainly you got to plan for it first.
Well, have you ever had a case that went really deep into, like, weeks about a phone, like losing a phone or someone stole your phone?
Perhaps not losing a phone or stole your phone, but I've had cases that have taken months and months, a year and a half, close to 2 years.
Wow. Well, what is your coolest part about running your own private investigation firm?
Well, I think it's similar to anybody who owns their own business. I like the freedom to be able to maybe get up a little bit later in the morning, but the counterpart to that is I usually am working into the evenings.
Yeah.
So I've got that flexibility, and then I've got a lot of people that help me, both employees as well as other associates. So that's pretty neat.
Mhm. So how have you learned about yourself in doing this work?
I've learned, just like I said, that I'm probably not the type of person who is cut out to be an employee for someone else. It's quite rigid, and I'm more of an independent thinker. I certainly have learned that about myself along the way.
Wow. Well, does it take a lot of training to be a private investigator?
Not necessarily, but technically the state, once again, going back to the fact that we're licensed to conduct investigations in the state, they actually require you, if you want to put up your own business, you need to have worked under a licensed investigative agency for 2 years full-time, and that's considered they call it internship, you might call it your training.
Wow. Well, my dad said that you were in the Air Force. Thank you for your service. How is doing investigations in the military different than in the civilian work?
That's a fantastic question. The military is governed by this picky thing called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and they have rules that are different than what's in the civilian world. So we only investigated things that had an impact on the Air Force when I was doing my job, whereas obviously in the civilian world, people can come to you for a variety of issues. Your dog is missing, or you lost your phone, for instance. Something a little bit less consequential than what we did within the military.
Makes sense. Well, what's the hardest part about working in this field?
Oh, gosh. Oftentimes, clients, this is not unique to investigation, but oftentimes clients will expect better results than you're able to give them, even though you're doing your best.
That's true.
Or they might not appreciate the bill that you give them once you're finished.
That's
once you're
also
finished
true.
doing the work. Yes, there's always that. But like I said, that's not unique to investigation. I'm sure other folks have those same complaints.
Oh, yeah. Well, what was the craziest thing that has happened while you were doing your job?
Been in court a few times, and that's always a bit panicky.
Scary.
Yeah, because you never
I mean,
want.
you're not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer.
What do I do?
I'm just a simple witness on the stand, and making sure that I don't say anything that's wrong, because that could have a big impact on my client or the subject of my investigation. Those tend to be a bit tense.
Yeah. Well, what was the one thing that when you started doing investigations that you did not expect?
That's another great question. Gosh, I wish I tell you what, I didn't expect that I would one day be running my own business. I actually was an employee investigator for quite some time. And honestly, I was a little bit scared to take on the idea of opening up my own business. And so I kind of cheated, and I did it halfway. I actually bought into an existing business and became partners with another investigator. I did not expect that I would ever. I figured I'd be an employee for the rest of my life, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. So kind of run me through it. What kind of tasks does a private investigator have to do on a daily basis?
Well, it might be different for me as an agency owner than a field investigator. But for me, I'll be working with the clients to establish what investigative tasks they need, and then I would be sending out those assignments, because typically they're done by my investigators or colleagues.
Yes.
So I'll send out those taskings, I'll get those results back, and I'll get them back to the client. But for a field investigator, they're the ones that are going to be on the front lines. They're the ones who are going to be interviewing witnesses. They're going to be surveilling subjects, following them around.
Yeah.
They're going to be pulling records at the courthouse,
they're going to
such
be
as
like
that.
outside most of the time.
Absolutely.
So when you ever have to do surveillance, do you ever get bored and fall asleep?
That is a constant threat for sure, and I keep saying you're asking good questions, but that one in particular is quite insightful,
Really
because
good
it does happen. I won't necessarily admit that it's happened to me. Audiobooks, I find, or some people use talk radio, are an excellent way to be able to still focus on the subject, even though nothing may be happening for hours. And yet, you've still got kind of your mind working enough so that you're not prone to fall asleep.
Sleeping, yeah. So, what is one thing that you think would make your job easier?
If I had more clients that said the budget doesn't matter, that would make my life a whole lot easier.
That's funny. Well, what is the greatest challenge that most private investigators are dealing with today?
I would say it is the fact that because of internet searching and the more and more that you can find out on your own without engaging in a private investigator, I think that people are under the assumption that they don't necessarily need any more or that we can't give them any more. But the truth is that we can. And so that's a challenge for us to explain to the client that we really can help them and our services really are of value despite the fact that the internet's there.
Wow. So, what advice would you give to my listeners if they wanted to grow up and work in the private investigation industry?
I would say to definitely do what you can on your own in terms of studying up. There's so many resources. Back to the internet again.
Yeah.
So you can make use of internet resources to learn about investigation, books as well. And then your challenge is going to be to find an investigative agency that is willing to sponsor you as what Florida calls an intern. That's going to be the very hardest part of becoming a licensed investigator, is finding someone that's willing to take a chance on you and put the time in to train you so that you can be officially a private investigator intern.
Okay. So who helped motivate or inspire you the most in following your dreams?
Well, there's certainly people who have come before me, some colleagues. I've had 2 people who were agency owners themselves, and they definitely inspired me to follow that. And there are even some other business owners who inspired me to do my own thing who weren't even investigators.
Wow. So if you had to do a different job from the one that you're already doing, what would it be?
It would be to be a pilot. That's what I actually started out in the military, and that's how I wound up becoming an investigator, because in the course of my flight training, I was medically disqualified, and so they asked me, what do you want to do on the ground? And the job investigating in the Air Force, it has a title called Special Agent, and you get to wear civilian clothes, and you have a gun and a badge. And so I thought, next to flying airplanes, that might be the best thing that I could choose.
Wow. Well, what was your greatest achievement while working in this field?
There were perhaps 2 very large cases that I worked, one of which I worked overseas and one of which I worked here and had an overseas component to it. So one was working with the Harlem Globetrotters, and I assisted them in getting back a lot of money in the millions, that was rightfully theirs, that was taken by a business. And the other one was where there was a gentleman who was falsely accused of a crime, and we were able to show that to a court in Malaysia, of all places, and we basically got his head out of the noose. So those, I'd say those are the 2 greatest achievements.
Well, what message do you want to tell children all over the world about being a private investigator?
That it's a great career. I encourage you, if you do have that inclination where you like solving puzzles and just figuring things out, if you really like digging into the weeds of a problem, then you might have the temperament to that really is required to become a very good investigator.
Well, I run a radio show and podcast that talks about God during my Lion Strong segment. How do you include God's message in your work?
Well, we always try to be ethical and moral in our work, and you may or may not be surprised that Some people will ask you to do things that aren't exactly, not legal, but even beyond that, not moral or ethical. And we just have to turn those people away because, if we're not practicing in a moral and ethical manner, then we might as well not even be in business, in my opinion.
True. So when you were a kid, what did you want to do when you grew up? Did you always know that you were going to be a private investigator?
No, it goes back to your previous question that I wanted to be a pilot, and I did a fair amount of work toward that. And it just the quirks of it just didn't happen that way.
Okay. Well, what was the first job that you ever had?
Well, I think my sister and I sold avocados on the street, and back in the mid-'60s, over the course of a summer, we made $50.
That's a lot of money.
Seemed like it to us, especially back in the mid-'60s.
Oh, yeah. Well, was there anything you learned from that job that helped you to be a better private investigator?
I think negotiating with clients. You had different sizes of avocados. You had different money amounts on them, and some people would try to negotiate with us, and I think that helped.
What was the biggest mistake you ever made, and how did it change you as a person?
Well, there was an instance when I was in the service where an investigation didn't exactly go the way that I thought it would, and I thought I had done everything right, but one of the subjects of our investigation, who was in fact a thief, accused me of saying something that I did not say, and it caused a lot of grief. And had I documented what was said more closely, it would not have been such an issue, but that was a mistake on my part. Keep in mind, this is before where you're accustomed nowadays to seeing video recordings of interrogations.
Yes.
Oh, we didn't have that back. I mean, we're talking about early 80s.
Oh, wow.
So no, that just was not common practice. And in fact, we didn't have I was overseas. We didn't have the equipment. But I should have taken much closer notes, and that would not have reared its ugly head. So I would say that.
So basically you were framed?
I was falsely accused, I would say. So anyway, so I think what I learned from that was to better document conversations that were had, most especially as they relate to the particular investigations that I've done.
Okay. So when you're not working as a private investigator, what do you do for fun?
Well, I just got back from a 3-week overseas vacation, so I do enjoy traveling, although I've got teenage kids, so I don't do as much traveling as I used to when I was younger. But locally, tennis, play a lot of tennis, been playing that for 40 years. Very much enjoy that. And chopping wood, like my brother enjoys doing.
Wow. Well, do you play video games? And if you do, what's your favorite game to play?
I don't play so much video games. I enjoy, sometimes maybe the phone will kind of act as a distraction for me. I mean, a pleasant distraction.
Yeah.
I will say this. I've told my son this before because I know that there are plenty of excellent flight simulator. I don't know if you consider that a game. But, there are so many different great programs out there that are so realistic nowadays. But what I know is that if I ever, downloaded one or purchased one or whatever, I would never get any work done. That's all I would want to do.
That's true.
Oh, yeah. It would be 8 hours later. I wouldn't even notice time passed.
Like what? Like I just been playing this for 2 seconds and now it's already 8 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's your favorite book to read?
My favorite book is called On Wings of Eagles by an author named Ken Follett. He normally writes novels, but this was a true story about a couple of guys who got imprisoned overseas, and how the owner of the company, his name's Ross Perot. Maybe you're some folks older than you would know who he is, and they went over and they effected a rescue. Spoiler alert! They effected a rescue of the employees, and it's the most amazing. And to think that it's true is really drives home that much more how cool the book was. On Wings
Yeah.
of Eagles by Ken Follett.
Wow. Okay. Now can you tell me that one story? Remember, this is a kid show, but that one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on, you can tell me.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. The one story I'm not supposed to tell you. Certainly there's been times where I'm conducting an investigation, I'm surveilling somebody. In fact, there was one fella who had a long rap sheet, meaning to say he had a criminal record, an extensive criminal record. Yeah. But we had to watch him because I believe it was a child well-being issue, make sure the kid's okay, not being abused or neglected. And unfortunately, in the course of following him in a car, he detected my tail, if you will, and that started a very long car chase where he was actually chasing me. He turned the tables on me until such a time as I could find my way to a police station, because I wasn't sure what was
happening.
Yeah, what was gonna happen, and I finally did that. It was very embarrassing to report that to the client that somehow he had found out that I was watching him. That's happened a couple of times, and it's never fun when it happens.
Yeah, it's never fun.
Because what happens, of course, is the first thing they do is the subject will figure out who the client is without me telling them, and the subject will go straight back to the client. Hey, how come you got somebody following me?
True.
So that's professionally embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you think my listeners should know about you?
No, I mean, it's funny because I just consider myself an ordinary fella with an ordinary job. But I get it a lot when people run into me or they're first acquainted with me. They'll tell me that, oh, that's such a cool job. I would love to do that, or I would be good at that. And maybe they would be, and maybe they would think that that's like the coolest thing on earth. Perhaps it's just because I've been doing it for so long. Maybe I just think it's ordinary.
Yeah.
But perhaps to other people, not so much. But I tell you, if I had a dime for every time somebody told me, "Ooh, I wish I could be working for you doing that," oh yeah, I would have a couple of dimes.
Wow. So how can someone contact you to investigate something for them? Do you have a website or Facebook for my listeners that want to follow you?
Certainly. I've got a personal Facebook, but I would recommend just hitting the website, which is averyprivateeye.com. In other words, the agency name, averyprivateeye.com. I've got my bio on there, contact link, and all of that. They can definitely get a hold of me that way.
Sweet. Well, what is the one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
I expected you to ask me what was the most interesting case I worked, but that kind of circles back to the ones I told you about already. The fact that working for the Harlem Globetrotters and getting to meet Meadowlark Lemon and
what was it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. The case involved. You want me to tell you what the case was about? Okay. Here's the deal. I got to be careful about mentioning the subject. But the subject, the owner of the company is actually on a very popular TV show on ABC, so I gotta watch my words. So this company, who you would have heard of, it's a clothing manufacturer. So they had a deal with some of the older Harlem Globetrotters, Curly Neal, Marcus Haynes, the people maybe your dad has heard of, and they would produce jerseys and shorts and whatever, and they've got, just like you would see in an NBA jersey, they've got like the name or the face of the guy or the number of the guy, and it says Harlem Globetrotters on it. And they agreed with the players, with the old players, the retired players, that we'll pay you a fixed percentage of all the sales of these garments that we produce with your name and likeness on them. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? They were underreporting the number of sales. In other words, they were cheating the Harlem Globetrotters out of the money that was due to them, because if you say I only sold 10 of them, okay, so they get 8%, so you get whatever that is, 8 cents or 80 cents. I'm not a mathematician. But if you truly sold 100 of them,
tell them you bought 10. That's just a lie.
It is, and a very expensive lie. My understanding was that in court himself, not counting the other players, my understanding was that Meadowlark was awarded a jury amount of $750,000, and I testified on his behalf.
Wow. Well, thank you, Ollie, for being my special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Yes. Despite the fact that my math wasn't so good just a moment, perhaps I can learn something from you. I'll be glad to stick around.
Sure.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom Braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Tiberius's favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
Thank you, Ollie, for helping me with Math Corners. This week, we're going to do some more multi-step word problems. You know my dad loves showing me how math can be used in the real world. Today, we're going to talk about driving.
Sweet.
So, Carlos's car has a full tank of gas that holds 18 gallons of gasoline. He drives 3 hours and the car used 12 gallons of gas. How much longer can Carlos drive until he empties his gas tank? Well, this is a real world situation because people do love to drive and sometimes they drive until they have no more gas. Uh-oh. So, first we have to find out the rate at which the gas is being used. So if you remember, the rate question is the rate equals distance over time. So we will use the gallons for distance and get R equals 12 gallons over 3 hours, which is easily 4 gallons per hour. And then, here comes the hard part. Now you have to take the 18 gallons of a full tank and subtract the 12, leaving 6 gallons left. If you remember, the time equation is time equals distance over rate. Now we know the rate is 4, so the time left should be 6 gallons over 4 gallons per hour, making the time left 1.5 hours. You better find a gas station, Carlos. Better find one. So Ollie, do you ever run out of gas while investigating someone?
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's confession time because it actually did happen to me once. But I was nearing running out of gas. But luckily, the subject actually pulled over to a gas station. Oh, wow. And there was a gas station across the street. I filled up same time as they did. Nice. And boom, we went off.
Zoom. Well, my teacher said that I would use math every day. Do you use math while working as a private investigator?
Certainly in making up the budgets because we've got to factor in mileage, plus expenses, plus hourly rate or flat rates. And so I use spreadsheets to help me out. But absolutely, every single case involves math.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Ollie, for your help with Math Corners. And now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the heart of a lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and nobility. This week, we're going to talk about integrity. For me, I think integrity is doing what is right even when no one else is looking. And the qualities of integrity is honesty, sincerity, truthfulness, and fairness. So this week, I was at a candy store and was looking at the candy you can buy in a bag. You can use a scoop and fill the bag with the candy, and then they weigh the candy to determine how much you have to pay. I saw this one kid eat a piece of candy that fell by the side of the bag when he was filling it. And I thought that was cool because that candy was free. But when I dropped some candy, my dad said I could not eat it. That I would have to either throw it away or tell the girl at the counter. The girl did not care about the candy, but I remember that the store owner still has to pay for all the candy and have it available to sell. If I ate the candy without paying for it, I would be stealing it. The girl threw the candy away and looked at me like I was weird, but it was still the right thing to do. So, Ollie, did you see or use integrity at all this week?
Yeah, this week there was a prospective client that called in, and what they were asking to do was for some background information on somebody, and I could kind of tell by the questions I was asking and the answers I was getting was that there really wasn't actually a good reason for that person to have the information. Had I not, I could have easily taken his money and done the case, and maybe he'll go to somebody else who will take that approach. But for me, my integrity was on the line, and so I declined working for that gentleman.
Mm-hmm. Well, of all of the Heart of the Lion virtues, which virtue do you think my listeners should learn about the most, and why?
Well, I like your integrity example. I'll say integrity as a straight answer. Because it's just so much, you see a lack of it perhaps in places in this world, oh, yes. And I think it's one of the glues that really holds society together.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should always try and be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Amen.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Ollie Phipps for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking with you today. I think we learned a lot about being a private investigator and cool stuff that you get to do.
Well, thanks very much for having me on the show. I very much enjoyed passing on that info. If anybody else would like some more info about either my agency or having a career as a private investigator, you can go to our website, which is averyprivateeye.com. I is spelled EYE, averyprivateeye.com. And thanks again, Tiberius.
No problem. And also, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and like and subscribe. Also, be sure to listen to us next week on The Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy. That's a wrap, and make sure to ring that bell.